Hey guys, Josh here. Today we are here to do a preview of the up-and-coming second Barcelona test ahead of the F1 2016 season. It's the last chance for all the teams to do some testing before the season starts. 2 weeks on Sunday until the Australian Grand Prix, of course the first race of the 2016 season, the first of 21, of course, an even bigger calendar for this year, so even more races to look forward to. Should be a really good season. Then of course we had the first 4 days of testing last week, and then we have 4 days this week: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In terms of my reviews, expect them out Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, because sadly I will be unable to do a review tomorrow because I'm out all day and there's just no way I can do it. So I will be covering day 1 on the Wednesday alongside a day 2 review as well. So if you can't find anything else about day 1, of course, then you can just wait until Wednesday, and then I'll give my thoughts and kind of round up all the action from the opening day of this last pre-season test. Let's look then back to last week then, and let's have a little look at the mileage then. And Mercedes were well clear, 675 laps. They're looking near bulletproof really. I mean, I believe they only had about 2 or 3 retirements last year due to mechanical failure, so it could be even less this year. I mean, of course, you're always probably going to have some kind of failure, like Rosberg's engine blowing in Monza, especially if, they do have one reliability issue. It can put a lot of strain on the engines, later on in the season. Just like we've seen with Red Bull and Honda over the past 2 years. But I think Mercedes, probably have the most reliable car and engine on the grid, so they're looking in really good stead for the season. But that's in terms of reliability. Now, it doesn't really mean that they're going to have the most reliable, the fastest car, come Australia. We can't just take that for granted. Although we are expecting it, and although I do, predict that to happen, we certainly can't count out some of the other teams just yet, because really Williams and Ferrari haven't shown their hand yet. Ferrari, I think some people thought they were going on glory runs, but really they weren't. They clearly weren't pushing. You look at some of the speed traps, they're well down on Sauber, who were running last year's engine, and various bits of information as well from within the team highly suggest that Ferrari, and indeed all the teams, were not pushing for lap times last week. So certainly, we shouldn't just discount all the teams, and we shouldn't expect Mercedes to be the fastest car just because they have the most reliable car. But of course, that is probably going to be the case. But like I said, let's not expect it until it actually happens for qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix. Second then was Toro Rosso with 447 laps. Really good test for Toro Rosso. Some very valuable data, of course. That 2015 Ferrari engine could actually work out really well for them, and I do think we're going to be seeing them possibly even on the podium. Bit of a wild prediction there, but you never know. I did predict Perez to be on the podium in the second half of 2015 correctly, when other people saying that's never going to happen. So, you never know in Formula 1, and that's certainly something definitely to watch out for. Also, Sauber, they're not going to be on the podium, of course, in the opening part of the season, or any part of the season, really. But certainly there could be, there or thereabouts, really. Certainly in the points early on, if they have a decent car, of course, just revealed today. And it's a pretty tidy car, not too much change, really, from last year. There's still a couple of things that might just, give them a bit of a leap forward in the opening part of the year. They did such a good job, last year at the start of the season. But that's going to be tough to replicate, I think. Felipe Nasr, of course, came home 5th in the Australian Grand Prix in 2015. Doubt he can do the same, though, in 2016. And Sauber could really be struggling this year. But I hope they get it right. I hope Nasr gets over his brake problems that have just plagued him, really, in his Formula 1 career so far. And of course, Sauber will finally be running with their 2016 car, and it could be a few, difficult days for them, really, Tuesday, Wednesday, getting used to their car. But really, by the end of the week, they should be up and running. In terms of lap time then, what are we going to be seeing from the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari? Well, of course, the fastest time last week was a 1:22.8 on the ultra soft tyres from Vettel on day number 2. But of course, I think the times are going to be tumbling this week. And usually we do see quite a difference between the first and second week, especially considering this is the last week of testing the teams have. And last week was very much kind of just an installation, kind of few days. It's really testing the limits of the car in terms of reliability, but certainly not in pace. So I do think the lap times are going to tumble into the 121s and possibly even some high 120s towards the end of the week. Just all depends on how much the teams are going to push, but I do think they will push towards the end. I mean, you can't really leave it till Australia to do your first qualifying simulation, but maybe they will. We're gonna have to see on that one. But certainly the lap times have to get into at least the 121s this week. Williams then were 4th on the mileage standings with 377. Yeah, quite weak for Williams last week, but really they haven't shown their hand yet. And we really shouldn't rule out Williams. We really shouldn't rule Williams out, because for all we know, they might have a car to challenge Ferrari or Mercedes. I mean, of course, it's highly unlikely, but you never know from a team that's won championships in the past, a team that doesn't have the budget of Mercedes or Ferrari, but still has a fairly good budget and certainly has a really, really good group of people. Bottas and Massa as well, two really, really good drivers. Massa didn't get the mileage he wanted last week, so pressure's going to be on him and the Williams team to give the Brazilian the mileage, that he desperately wants for this year. Of course, the car does sound quite different as well from last year in terms of the handling and look of the car as well. Just like the Red Bull as well, does look quite different in terms of livery and car. Red Bull were 5th in the mileage standings with 369 laps, just ahead of Ferrari, who had 353. Yeah, contrasting week for both Red Bull and Ferrari, really. I mean, there was a lot of hype around Ferrari, of course. Can they catch Mercedes? And I think people have kind of gone quiet on that, but really, I don't think they should, because they could very much be up there. They could, still be there challenging Mercedes for the championship. We really don't know an answer to that yet, and we'll probably start to get a better picture this week, especially if Mercedes actually run the ultra soft tyres. Of course, they haven't even run the softs or the super softs yet, so that will certainly be maybe quite unlikely that we'll see the super softs from Mercedes. I think they've already come out and said we're not going to be running those, but certainly, hopefully, we will see at least the softs and hopefully the super softs on that Mercedes this week. And also Ferrari as well, probably trying to improve their lap times. Raikkonen, hopefully, is going to be better this season. Early indications that he's enjoying the car, that he seems more confident in it, and I really do hope that's true. I really hope he can take the fight to Vettel. I mean, of course, he's not going to beat him, but I hope he can just challenge him a few more times in a few more races. Pretty much in Bahrain was the only time Raikkonen actually beat Vettel. Pretty much all season. I think there was, of course, in Mexico as well, and maybe another time as well. But certainly, big improvement needed from Kimi Raikkonen if he wants to keep that seat. And certainly, Ferrari are probably happy to have him, but, maybe Raikkonen's maybe had enough after this year. We're going to have to see. Those new, of course, 2017 regulations might tempt him to stick around in Formula 1, but he's still going to have to do a decent job this year to make Ferrari, want to keep him for another season. Of course, they could save a lot of money as well by hiring Valtteri Bottas, and really, in my opinion, they should have done it for this season. But anyway, Raikkonen is there. Of course, it's still a very popular figure, and certainly one that still has a lot of pace, and if he can just unlock that, maybe the 2016 car will, play more to his strengths than the 2015 car, and maybe we could see a resurgent Kimi Raikkonen, but it kind of remains unlikely at the moment. Renault then, yeah, interesting first week for them, just like Red Bull, of course, both of them kind of going their separate ways for 2016, but very much kind of staying the same, really. I mean, if you think about it, even though they have a rebranded, Tag Heuer engine, rebranded Renault engine, as a Tag Heuer. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much still the same engine. It's still the same team, and Red Bull are still probably going to have the same problems they had in 2015. It doesn't seem like the 2016 Renault engine is really a major step forward, so I still very much believe that Red Bull are still going to be struggling and still probably going to be the 4th or maybe even 5th quickest team this year. But of course, we do know they have a really, really good car, and they always do, really, in terms of aerodynamics. They're one of the best on the grid, and that's certainly their kind of speciality, and something that won them so many championships as well, but something that's really not being put to good use recently, and it's such a shame. In my opinion, F1 should definitely be a lot more about the aerodynamics, and certainly not as much about the engine and just who has the quickest engine. Quite annoying and frustrating for them. But anyway, talking about Renault then, well, yeah, interesting first week for them. It definitely got a lot better in day 3 and 4. Jolyon Palmer, though, completed the least amount of laps of anyone, while Magnussen completed the 3rd most amount of laps for anyone. Magnussen, of course, being in the car for day 3 and 4, that really benefited him. So hopefully Jolyon Palmer will get a lot more laps in this week and a lot more mileage in the car. And of course, Magnussen fits in there really, really well. And, can Renault, get off to a good start this season? It's going to be tough. I think they could be one of the teams that probably comes on strong later on in the season. I don't mean challenging for podiums or wins, although maybe they could sneak a podium, but I think certainly they might have a good battle with Force India, and Force India were just behind them, 8th most mileage of anyone else, 333 laps. Sergio Perez and Nick Hülkenberg then setting 200 laps between them, with an Alfonso Hurst Jr. setting 133 on day 1 and 4. And in terms of pace, Force India did show really good pace. Hülkenberg second quickest of anybody, just 0.3 off Vettel, but Hülkenberg's time was on the super soft tyres, Vettel's was on the ultra soft tyres, so that doesn't really prove that Force India is faster than Ferrari. It just kind of proves that Vettel wasn't really pushing, and probably neither were Force India as well. They claim they weren't just going on glory runs, but I guess maybe they probably were. I mean, not really low fuel, but on a more serious note, I think people shouldn't underestimate Force India. They could be one of the surprise teams of 2016. They finished 2015 so strongly, and there's no reason to really, suspect that they might actually be the third or fourth quickest car in 2016, and that could really help them. Especially the fact that in 2017, of course, we're getting new regulations. It might mean that even the big teams just stop development of their 2016 car. That means that the cars kind of probably a bit later, maybe kind of Silverstone time, maybe Hungary, Belgium. It might kind of just freeze the order there. And if Force India are right at the front, they could actually be podium contenders, regular podium contenders for the first time in their career. Of course, one podium, of course, back in 2009, one podium in 2014, and one podium in 2015. Could we be seeing multiple podiums in 2016? It's certainly a possibility. Force India looking very strong at the present time. Haas were 9th most mileage done then. Didn't really make sense, but well, 281 laps for them last week, and it should be an interesting week for them. Can they continue the progress they made last week? Very much like Renault, how they kind of just improved as the test went on, understanding more and more about Formula 1 and just this kind of new venture for the Haas team that they're going about really well, I think, and certainly made a really good start to their Formula 1 career. McLaren, 257 laps for them, complete opposite of Haas and Renault. Their test just went backwards, really. Very promising first 2 days. Just went backwards, though, in day 3 and 4. And really major improvement needed from McLaren. They're getting a new engine for this week. Manor, at least the laps of anyone, but really not so much concern just because it was a great test for them, really. Rio Haryanto didn't get the laps that he wanted. And neither did Verline, really. I mean, just 125 laps for Verline, 120 laps for Haryanto. Haryanto, of course, to blame for that, really, because, he did spin the car on both days. He really does need to improve that. He can't afford another mistake, really, in testing. I mean, of course, it is only testing. You don't score points in testing, but the testing is so valuable, and he can't afford just to keep on spinning off. But 2 mistakes is okay, but I think a third this week would really hurt his reputation and probably knock his confidence as well. He's clearly not tuned in with the car. 128 for him, 3 seconds off his teammate, but I'm sure he'll get to grips with the car a lot more this week. Verline as well, I think, will put in hopefully some impressive lap times as well. Hopefully see where Manor are this week as well in relation to their rivals, which I'd probably say at the moment are Sauber, Haas and McLaren, possibly even Renault as well. But, we'll have to see. For all we know, Manor could be at the back of the grid, but I do kind of doubt it. But, you never know. That's pretty much it then for all 11 teams in terms of the engine. You had Mercedes on top, then Ferrari, then Renault, then Honda. And in terms of the drivers, Hamilton and Rosberg at the top, with Magnussen and Nasser and Verstappen, Sainz, Bottas, Ricciardo, Ericsson, Vettel, Fiat, Gutierrez, Massa, Raikkonen, Button, Celis Jr., of course, not present this week, Haryanto, Verline, Alonso, Grosjean, Perez, Hülkenberg, and Palmer then. So big improvements needed for McLaren this week. It's a crucial week for them. Can Ferrari take the fight to Mercedes? Well, we might find a few more answers to that question, but it's not going to be completely answered this week. What can Red Bull do, of course, with that rebranded engine? Where are they going to fit in the pecking order? Could we see a fight between Mercedes customers, Williams and Force India? And where are Manor going to factor in to all this? We'll also be seeing the new 2016 Toro Rosso livery, as well as, of course, as the 2016 Sauber, that of course was revealed today. We'll see that on track for the first time tomorrow for day 1 of testing. I'll see you guys on Wednesday, though, for my review of the first 2 days of this final Barcelona test ahead of the F1 2016 season. You guys can leave your thoughts and opinions on this week of testing down in the comment section below. Until then, I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye.